It is 11:24 p.m. on, what date is it? I don't know, March something, early March 2026. And yeah, the dates are sort of blending. I'm already, like, I dedicated a lot of energy into this essence scene that I shared on YouTube. But in the background, I was also working on 3 or 4 other scenes and a solo show, a 15-minute solo show. So right now I'm fully dedicating my time to the solo show because we got all the other scenes and classes out of the way and we finished them. I think I was also doing like 2 monologues. Okay, look, it was just a lot. Okay, it was a lot. So I don't even know how I pulled that scene out of my butt. Before it disappears into the subconscious, I wanted to just talk about what I experienced filming the scene. It was literally like 4 lines. It's like 1.5 minutes. It wasn't a long scene, but it was for Astrid in the film. Like, this is her most emotionally deep scene. It's her scene, I guess, in the film. And it's so interesting because recently I was listening to a podcast about another actress who got the role in Pluribus. I'm sorry, I don't exactly fully remember her name and which role it was because I haven't been watching that show, but congrats to her. But her story really inspired me, and she said something that I related to very deeply, in that she said that all of her life experiences had been leading her to that moment and feeding into that moment. And she knew, like, it wasn't just her, like her friend who was helping her in her self-tape said to her, like, that she noticed something had happened, or she just felt this energy with that tape that they were making. And I just wanted to say that I really related with that for some reason, like watching back the takes that we did. So I only shared 1 of 3 takes that we filmed. And when I was watching them back, I realized that, yeah, I had spent about 2 weeks from the decision of, okay, I'm going to work on this scene for on-camera class up till the day that we filmed it. But I mean, I'd known about the film. I'd read China Rich Girlfriend. Well, that being said, I had read parts of China Rich Girlfriend, and then I watched the film. So I knew the story, and when I listened to the audiobook in preparation for the scene, it broke my heart. Especially the Wuthering Towers chapter. And a part of me does sort of wish that they had taken that angle a little bit more with the film. But because Astrid and Michael's relationship is like the perfect foil to Nick and Rachel's relationship, really, because it's not Colin and Araminta. They're not the foil. They are like a premise. They're like part of the premise. They're like part of the reason why Nick brings Rachel to Singapore. But like, we're talking Uptown Girl and Backstreet Boy and like Girl Next Door, like regular girl and rich upper class boy. Like, that's the parallel, right? And with Nick and Rachel, yeah, the man doesn't tell her anything. He doesn't prepare her for this world that he's bringing her into. But in my opinion, even though Rachel is a lot more mature and secure in herself, that's the word I'm looking for, secure in herself compared to Michael, in the book, the things that we hear that Michael experiences marrying Astrid, it's devastating. It's like it's really heartbreaking, and it's a lot worse than a jealous ex-girlfriend or what's the word for it, jealous side chick that never made it to side chick, you know what I mean? Like jealous female who likes your boyfriend putting a dead fish in your bed. It's so different from, and like all the other stuff, like it's so different from like a man being sat down. Sorry for the spoilers, but this was very important for my interpretation of the scene and what I brought to the scene, so I'm going to talk about it. It's very different from a man being sat down by your brothers and finding out how much you own and how much you make every year, and how his annual income cannot even cover one of your dresses, you know, and how, like, and beyond that, like, he's forced to sign both a prenup and a postnup, which in my opinion is very wise and very intelligent. And yes, as a big sister to like younger sisters, I would tell them, you know, yeah, you need a prenup and a postnup, and to protect your own assets, like. But it made me realize, like, it made me realize, like, wow, Michael Teo in the book really like given a lot of shit. And the thing is, he knew what he was getting into, really, even if he doesn't know the full extent, I think, and he didn't know until that dinner or lunch that he had with Astrid's brother. It's like, he grew up in Singapore. He knows who if he doesn't know who these people are, he must be living under a rock. And I don't think he is. He's, you know, he's ambitious. He's and any ambitious man in Singapore, at least the men amongst all of the men that I had grown up with and known, like any ambitious man knows who is who in Singapore, okay? And they would definitely know more than I do. You know what I mean? Like, to be very honest about it, because they're playing the game of life. They're involved in society, and so Michael knew what he was getting into, even if he didn't know the full extent of what Astrid had owned prior to that dinner. And I think that's why it's really heartbreaking, is because he really tried for 6 years. You know, he had a son with her, and then at some point he just decided, you know, I'm going to fabricate this affair so that she has a reason to leave me. I think that really broke my heart, because I didn't realize, like, it's such a different Michael than from the film, you know. And I didn't realize how much he loved her, even though he does have a villain arc in the rest of the books. It's actually almost like tragic, because he is a man who succumbs to the pressures of society. It's like the whole nature versus nurture debate, or situation. Is it a posteriori? Yeah, it's like, it's not, what's the opposite of nurture even? It's like destruction. I don't know. Corruption. Yeah. Just to see, like, I can see why he behaves the way he behaves later on, you know? And it's devastating. It's devastating because from Astrid's point of view, like, she hoped he would be, firstly, he was different from all of the men she'd grown up with, and I can see why she admired that in him, you know, like, I think also because I do have a real life example of, I mean, funny thing though, because when we were watching the film, my father was like, this was his favorite scene, and I think that's another reason why I decided to pick it. He was like, yeah, tell him like it is, you know. He was on Astrid's side the whole way, and I think he sort of somewhat saw his daughters in her shoes, because he's so, I guess, so invested in us and so proud of us, like, in a way. Thank you, Dad. but 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 he was like really, you know, he was not happy with how Michael treated her, and I realized that's kind of like the difference between my dad and Michael. Is like, because I do have an example of a man who, and I think that's why at first it was so difficult for me to really relate to Astrid in a way. Like, as I was like, okay, well, this is where Diana ends and Astrid begins, because Diana would not be putting up with this, half of this shit, honestly. I think also because that's maybe the positive example that my dad had given me. I'm just looking at Vivi. There she is. It's not a commercial break, it's a cat break. You get a little cat break. Yeah, like my dad, I think my dad, personally, in my opinion, he achieved and achieves or works a lot harder than Michael, in my opinion. And he came from humble beginnings as well, you know, but he, like, the difference is that, like, well, Michael was also an OCS boy, so obviously my father, you know, when he did his national service conscription in Singapore, like, he did very well, which is part of what Michael's description is in the books. And then he also went on and got 2 scholarships to Cambridge and Harvard. So, you know, like, my dad gave such a positive so like, I can understand why Astrid picked him in a way, like a man like that, because I saw that when my mom would tell me, you know, she wanted someone different from a lot of the frankly relatively spoiled, rich and arrogant, and really a lot of them very misogynistic boys that she had grown up with, or she had known growing up, and then she met my dad, and I can see that in their love for each other, and I can also understand, like, firsthand, like, what it's like to be a child of people who come from very different social upbringing, like social circles and upbringings. And I think, you know, they've come to a happy, not a compromise or a middle, but like a center. You know, they found their center. Sometimes I feel like they're still finding, but you know, that's life. That's human beings. Like, as humans, we all have to find our centers, but it's a brave choice. And I think, like, that's why I think when I listened to the Wuthering Towers chapter in the audiobook, my heart really broke for Astrid and Michael, because I was like, wow, this man fabricated a cheating affair to give his wife a reason to leave the marriage. And he knew he had already signed the postnup and the prenup. Like after their first son, like the son, okay? They had a son. Not a daughter, a son. So like they have like the perfect on paper family. Like he after the first son was born, he signed a postnup. And he knew that leaving or divorcing Astrid was not going to give him anything anyway. And instead of just asking for a divorce and having the conversation with her and being like straight up about how it wasn't working anymore, he decided to. That's the part that I was a little bit like, okay, wow, yeah, he is a bit of a coward, because he decided to fabricate a cheating affair, a cheating scandal about it. But as a human being, I think I had a lot of empathy for him, because I was like, wow, you would rather be known as the man who cheated on Astrid Leong than ask for a divorce. That's how ashamed, broken he felt after 6 years of marriage with her. Not because of her. And that's the issue, right? That was like the real thing that I was really struggling with for like 2 weeks. It was like, not because of anything that she had done. It's literally because she's so fortunate and so privileged and lives in such, like, she had such a good life before him, and she will always be having a good life. Like, she's provided for. She doesn't need him. And the people around her, her family, the society, the world that they're in, like, it will always look at him as I mean, what is the male? It's not really the same as like a female, you know, when people use the word social climber, it is sort of like it sort of implies that the person has successfully climbed the ladder socially, right? But in Michael, in from his perspective, he can't climb. There's nothing for him to land on. There's no, like, he's not going to be provided for. Like for example, if eventually Rachel does get married to Nick, and we all know this, right? And she gets accepted by the family, and if she gave birth to a son, like, yeah, maybe they would remember the time of their life, of Rachel's life, when her mother was like, you know, ran off to America with her child, but they're not going to throw her out. They're not going to make her sign a prenup and a postnup and be like, you're getting nothing. Because I think you could argue, like, we could say that, yeah, but because as a woman she carries the child, like, she donates her body to the family, but like, does a father not donate his time and his love? You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's something I realized over the course of doing this scene is and preparing for it. It's like, yeah, you know, I used to be so upset when men had, and I still get upset and offended when men have double standards. Not so much the actual thing itself, but when they have double standards, it's like, if you're gonna call women who if you're gonna call women gold diggers and social climbers, why don't you use the same words on men as well, who do date and marry people of higher classes? use the same terms. Like, don't just use that on the opposite sex and be a misogynist. Like, share the hate, you know what I mean? Or for example, yeah, like the other example that I can think of off the top of my head is like people who hated on Ariana Grande when Ethan Slater was the one in the marriage and made the choices to his partner, you know? It's like, share the hate. Don't just hate on one person. Like, like, where was all the hate for him? Yeah, maybe there was hate, but like people were not like vilifying him the same way that they vilified Ariana. Not from what I saw anyway. It was like, and also, I mean, personally for me, speaking as Diana, like, it's none of my business. So like, I'm not gonna weigh in on who was right or wrong. My only opinion is like, don't have double standards on women and men. Like, share the hate. Share the love, share the hate. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, or just like hold men to the same standards that you're trying to hold women to. Like, what is, like, why? You know? Yeah. And at the same time, now that I've, thought about it and really embraced the story, I mean, that's what I'm doing, right? I'm embracing the story that Kevin Kwan has created for Astrid and Michael. It's like, it is a lot deeper in a different way, because it's not like Michael can give birth to the son and then be looked after by the family. And the interesting, I mean, and the thing is, right, he needs, like, it's Astrid's benefactor who then elevates Michael to the position that he needs to be in. So he's still relying on her social capital, really. So yeah, he is kind of a social climber, isn't he? But that's the word, but the term doesn't like fully encapsulate what he's doing. I guess that's why, like, I mean, both sides were being upwardly mobile, but he has to rely on her social capital in the end to get that investment from Charlie, her ex-boyfriend, and someone who had grown up in the same social circles that she was in, right? And that's essentially what he's needs to rely on, and what he gets as like that is real social climbing, you know what I mean? But it happens differently for both of them, because like for Rachel, she would never need to do that. She has a very different path if she were to want to be upwardly mobile in this society, whereas for Michael, it's like he ends up getting the help he needs to take his company to the level it needs to be for him to be able to sustain a marriage with Astrid, and as not as like as an equal, as he an equal, or as someone who can stand shoulder to shoulder with her, you know? And so when I ended up finally doing the scene, I had sort of not just, I had all of these, I'd really thought about all of these questions and issues, and I had to and found the hope in the relationship. I think because even though, they are fighting, like in the book, it talks about how they have the best sex, and she talks about, like, it talks about how he's basically the best looking man that she's ever laid her eyes on. So you have to bring that into the scene. It doesn't matter if they're breaking up and she's telling him the truth. Like, yeah, like, okay, well, yeah, and I think that's the part where I was like, okay, well, as Diana, I can understand. I had the section of Diana. I'm not able to as Diana, I cannot understand why she would put up with half of this shit. And if my dad was like, if my dad, if it was my dad observing me going through some of the stuff that Astrid goes through, he would be like, I'm gonna go kill that man. You know what I mean? He would be like super protective of me. So as Diana, like, I'm like sitting there thinking like, I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, yes, but come on, girl. Come on. Girl, like, sister, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just sitting there like, sister, his dick's so good, man. And I was like, okay, I have to accept that this is Astrid's experience, And then, I think that was that was fun, like creating the imaginary life for Astrid and her relationship with Michael, because when we finally got to that take that I shared, I think I was in a place where I was allowing everything that I had created to flow through me as the artist. All of the empathy and imagination work I had put into like seeing Cassian's stuffed toy when I'm fighting with my husband, thinking of where I had put Cassian before coming to this apartment. Why was I even there, And I guess I'm just gonna say, like, yeah, I decided that I was going to the apartment to get my son's passport, because I think as Astrid, I would have just relied on my helpers to just do all the packing for me, because I'm not gonna go see them. And I also think like I would have had the divorce lawyers send him the papers by email, so there would be no need for us to talk to each other. And I'm just going to the apartment to collect his passport, because that would be in the safe, and that would be something the helpers would not be able to access. The staff and the domestic help, like, just me and my husband would have access to that safe. And that's a compelling enough reason to go into the apartment. And so when he stops me, it's almost as if like I'm caught off guard and I did not expect to see him there. And it worked, And then there's all of the imagination work that I had done for Michael based off of the scenes, well, not the chapters in the book that describe their relationship, how they met at this charity event. Well, they didn't actually meet, but not they had their proper meeting later, but she saw him at a charity event, and everyone at the charity event was like, all the women were obsessed with him because he was the best looking male model, raising funds for charity. And then we find out that he was roped into it by one of his friends who like convinced him to do it. And then she meets him at his NS buddy's birthday party. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's what it was. And then all of that imagination work went into that, the moment of like seeing him. Because the other thing you need to think about is like, in the book, she discovers this text message right after they have sex. So they're still having really good sex, you know what I mean? Like, she sends this text message, and then she does her investigation work. She's, you know, she what else she does? She confronts him. They have a fight. He's like, oh, I'm not going for any of this. She tracks him down to Hong Kong, to his cousin's apartment, and she discovers the truth. So not that much time has passed, and she's definitely still attracted to him. So I really wanted to bring that in. And when I was watching the take back, I did kind of feel like, okay, there was a lot going on for Diana, like the actor. There was like a mix of every flavor in a little way. Like this is a full meal, okay? There's like the contempt, there's the hostility, there's the anger, and there's still the love, and there's also lust. And then there's the vulnerability. It's still like, when I watch myself back, I'm still like, it takes me a few watches to get over the self-consciousness of like, Diana's eye bags are very obvious, but it's okay. And yeah, and little like nitpicky things about the looks and stuff, but once I was able to really just see, like, get into the mindset and the space where I'm looking at this from a neutral, like as if I am a third person, like another person just watching a scene, I really did feel both the love and the hate that Astrid had for Michael in that moment. And I'm really grateful that I had done the imagination work to get myself into that space. Because I think as an actor, like, by the time we got to that take, it was the second or third take we had that day. And the first take was really good, for me anyway. Like, I loved it. But, you know, there were like moments in it that I was like, this is like like technical moments, like as Diana the actor, I hadn't yet figured out because my scene partner, it's not on him at all, but he was being really kind and he wasn't really pulling me the way Michael would have pulled Astrid, but he was just like, you know, human to human, like tugging my arm a little, like just holding my arm, so that, and then I had to do the acting work of like pulling myself back onto the mark, right? And the first take that we did, it was so obvious that I was helping him as opposed to like making it so that I was being pulled back into the scene. And then by the second take and the third take, I had managed to like, okay, this is where I need to like end up when I'm pulled back into frame. And so and then the other stuff was like figuring out what kind of entry I wanted to have. Like, am I on a mission or am I doing it with some class? Doing it with the way Astrid would do it, you know what I mean? Like, am I on a mission to just get the passports and get F out of there? Or am I like, okay, I don't want to get caught, but also I don't want to go too slow. It's not that I don't want to be here. Like, we had one take where I was like going way too slow into the apartment because my choice I had made was to like, I don't want anybody to see me here. I don't want to bump into anyone. I don't want to bump into Michael. I don't want to be here. So I'm just here to get this passport and get out. And then finally we landed on the one that I shared, which I felt was the best entry as a choice. Like, as a choice, it was to like go in with enough pace, but still not lose composure. And yeah, like, these choices matter, you know? Stella Adler said, famously, one of my favorite quotes from Stella Adler is about how in your choice lies your talent. And I love that quote because it talks about, well, because it implies that talent is developed. And in order to expand your talent, you just have to expand your range of choices that you make as an actor in the scene. You know what I mean? And align your choices to the vision that is there for the story and with the people that you're telling it with, you know? So it makes it very clear, like what, and you don't have to worry about whether or not you're talented anymore because you're just focused on the doing and the acting on your choices, you know, taking actions. Yeah. Being an active participant in the story, you know? All these acting puns. But it really is that simple when you think about it, what acting is and what it isn't. It's like living and loving. It's a verb. Spoiler alert. But anyway. Yes, I'm such a nerd, okay? Oh my god, I'm such a nerd. I'm such a theater geek. Anyway, so am I happy with this take? Yes, because I've grown a lot as an actor, and that's why I really relate to what this lady said about how she really felt like every life experience she had had before had led her to that moment and she had prepared her for that role. Yeah, obviously it's just a scene and I don't know like what's ever going to become of the scene. But I'm just acting and sharing my acting. Like that's all. You know, I'm just an actor. At some point in the summer, you know, and when I set up my structures and my systems, I will be taking on more like producery, editory, producery roles, you know what I mean? But acting is the primary discipline for me. So that's kind of why I've chosen to let the actor be the focus of a lot of my content as opposed to like the editor or the director or the whatever, because those things can be layered in. But if I start there and let myself get distracted from the acting, I'm just gonna live in regret again. You know, I did that for 10 years. Well, yeah, when I was trying to figure out how to get myself into, well, get myself, how do I say this in one sentence? Become an actor in London. Yeah. Become an actor like Ian McKellen. Yeah. And I had focused so much on solving the problems and breaking through the obstacles that were before me that I didn't act. I didn't just act. But also then eventually, now in retrospect, the education that I needed to have as an actor is what I'm doing now. Like this particular program at this point in my life, like this is the education I've always wanted as an actor. And it wasn't available to me in this form, in these ways 10 years ago. Like I'm in the first daytime cohort of the LA school of the studio that I'm in, like, you know, the LA studio of the school and the like doing Stella Adler's work with people who, you know, like in this branch of it, and this lineage, you know, of her teaching. Like, there's no way I would have been able to access that in the UK 10 years ago where I was living. And Patrick Stewart, in his memoir, Sir Pat Stew, he wrote about how American acting is so much more advanced than British acting, because in terms of like, yeah, because in Britain, which is what I had experienced as well, I growing up in Singapore, living in the UK, training as an actor in the British school of thought for what, 20 years of my life. I think, I mean, yeah, I don't, anyway, even when I was in Singapore, in the English speaking acting theater circles, we were following the British, because Singapore is an ex-British colony. So Stella Adler is American. She wasn't teaching in the UK, okay. Yeah, and so even Patrick Stewart, he was like, he talks about how Americans will use the phrases like living the life of the character and being the character, and as opposed to like the technicalities of it, which the British are actually really good at. Like, a lot of American actors praise the Brits because of their technical precision, and they're so advanced in that. Like, they're advanced, especially theatrically, like just the technicalities of the craft are there, but the soul of the craft, in my opinion, I mean, people look at Strasberg and the method and all of that, and they and Adler, you know, and Stanislavski, they look towards them for that, and it is very different, I have to say. Like, I didn't feel like I was truly acting until, like, I had always had this sort of imposter syndrome with acting until I took this class in Singapore from a person who, like, an American teacher who was teaching like the imagination work around it, like really being and expanding your vessel into expressing that version of you that is the character. Okay, why did I go on this detour? Is it a detour? I mean, I'm just talking about acting now at this point. Like, we've gone beyond the scene to just talk about why I love what I do, and my experience with what I'm doing. So, and how much I love it. But I think that's important. Yes, because in the final 3 lines of this scene, I was nervous about sharing this take because I wasn't sure what was happening with me in it. If you have watched it and you're watching this and you're like, what are you talking about, Diana? You can watch it back and see whether you see what I'm seeing, or whether I'm just being delulu, like 100% delulu and like self-conscious. I don't know. But she says, I'm speaking in third person now. That version of me, my version of Astrid says, the problem with our marriage isn't my family's money, it's that you're a coward. But those are 2 different sentences, just by the way. And when I said the problem, let's be clear, the problem with our marriage isn't my family's money, I sort of looked away from, I was, like, you could see in her eyes, she was going somewhere else. She wasn't there, you know? Like, And so I was like, did I drop off the map? You know, like, as Diana, did I check out of the scene? What is happening here? And then she looks at him when she says, it's that you're a coward. You gave up at us. You gave up on us. But I've just realized, you know, those lines. And then I thought about it, and then I watched it again, and then I realized, no, this is a real human experience right now. And then I do recall, okay, I felt like as Diana, when I was in that moment, my subconscious was going somewhere really deep and kind of dark, honestly. And a part of me was like, I don't want to go there. And that's how I knew I was on the brink of some real vulnerability. Okay. And I don't have any clear conscious images of what I was seeing. It was just like it was like the feeling of, I know I have to express this, but I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to have this, it's the fear of intimacy right in that moment. And then I accepted the challenge. That's what I remembered was happening to me. And I accepted the challenge, and I really just poured out my heart to my scene partner using the lines that the screenwriter had given us. Yeah. Yeah, because when I was watching it back, I was like, I'm not sure if I can share this take, because is she disconnecting? Did she 下线? Like, is she offline? Did her internet drop off? Her Wi-Fi just dropped? Like, what is happening? But then she came back stronger and more connected, and I really felt everything she said after that, the character, or my version of Astrid. As like from a technical or an acting or a technique perspective, I was like, yeah, no, I really felt what she was saying. I believe that. I buy that. This is a story. She's telling the story. This is appropriate for this moment in the story. And I remember as the actor, as Diana, I had made this choice where I was like, I'm going to play this line with as much love as possible, because that's the truth of the moment. Is that, yeah, I'm saying these really harsh things to this man who at the time, as Astrid, I would believe is the love of my life. Like, what's his name? Charlie. See, I couldn't even remember his name for a moment. I thought he was Chris. Charlie Wu was like long gone. We had fought, and I had this huge breakup with him, like very dramatic breakup. I forgot about this man. He's living in Hong Kong anyway. Like, screw, like, and this man, I didn't hedge my bets. I went all in with this man. And even though I'm telling him he's a coward, and he's the one who gave, like, I'm telling him he gave up on us because I want him to say, no, I'm not going to give up on you. It's like, yeah, as the actor, what is my choice? My choice is that I need him to say that I'm wrong. I'm not gonna, like, you're wrong, Astrid. I'm not gonna give up on you. We're going to make this work. Like, that's what I want Michael to say, right? So that's how I chose to play those lines, or let the scene play me. I chose to let the scene really just play me, and that's what Astrid would have wanted. And I know that's true because, well, this is the part that I can relate to as Diana. It's like, I also have told men that they were cowards when we were breaking up, but I also did want them to fight for me, fight for us, fight for the relationship, and choose to figure out how to make it work. You know what I mean? Different circumstances, but empathy, similar experience. Yeah. And wow. I think when I watched myself back you know, the fifth time, because I was like watching these 3 takes that we had done, trying to figure out which take to share. And then I was like, let's just use this take, you know. It was the most coherent technically and smooth technically, like I was on the mark. In case you didn't know what we do behind the scenes. You're welcome to the world of an actor behind the scenes. Yes. I was on the mark. I got onto and off the mark in the ways that felt smooth and coherent with the story. And just that one moment I had the question mark over, but then I thought about it and I was like, no, actually, this is believable. I think as human beings, there are times when we don't want to go somewhere and we choose to go there. So let Astrid have that experience too, you know? Let Astrid have it. Yeah. Yeah, and when I got over the self-consciousness of it and really allowed myself to just be neutral and have that, I guess in this sense, like a producer-editor mindset on it, I picked that take. Is it kind of a little bit like a directory take on it as well, like a directory point of view? I picked that take because, yeah, I felt like if it wasn't me, you know, if I was watching another actor in there and I didn't have the same issues of when you're watching yourself back and like trying to get over the self-consciousness of it, it's like when I think also the fact that my mole is on a different side from when I see it in the mirror, it helps a lot because then I can believably, you know, I can allow myself to believe that this person is not me, Diana, but it's the character. Because my mole is on the other side of my face when I'm looking in the mirror. So it's like, oh, who is this person? Who is she? She's someone else. I don't look at her every day. You know? When I'm brushing my teeth, I don't look at this person. Who is that? Anyway, but the point is, when I managed to get myself into the headspace where I looked at it from a neutral perspective without the attachments, I did feel like it really was heartbreaking. It was deep and it was truthful. I hope that came across. I know, I mean, I'm not that Delulu, so I'm not that Delulu. And I have enough faith in the work I've put in to know what acting is when I see it. So I guess, yeah, I just wanted to talk about what it felt like preparing for this moment, doing this moment, and what I learned as an actor ultimately, you know. Yeah. Bye.